Okay, there you go. Don't touch that.
Nice.
Now, bring that down. That's the great thing about PowerPoint.
I wonder what you've got for Kevin. Kevin.
In the meantime, this is the swag I've got.
Thank you. Humanities.
Let's just put that.
I need a haircut, you know. I'm looking at my dress.
At the bottom. You'll notice all that. You're in the right place.
Yay! Cool, thank you. Alright, so, well, welcome everyone. So, as Joe said, that I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to attend Interaction15 in San Francisco in February, sorry. One day. So, and actually there's a few people from Sydney as well, and one of them was Jake. So what I'm going to share with you tonight was just some of my favourite highlights, and I'm going to start with some quotes that I collected and just be inspirational, aspirational, and I'm going to follow with some a bit more sort of practical lessons that I hope you guys find useful. So to kick it off, I'm just going to play a little bit of video of what they put together. It's a 3-minute recap, so let's come on.
Welcome to San Francisco. Welcome to the 8th annual Interaction Conference.
It takes a huge amount of people to do what the IxDA does throughout the world, in all of your communities, and a huge number of people working hard to make this conference and previous ones a reality.
I mean, the number of designers working there when I arrived in the late 1980s was, a few hundred at most, and now there are thousands and thousands of designers operating here. It's changed this place in many, many ways.
Design is often thought of as window dressing. It's like magic pixie dust that you sprinkle on the end of a project and hope that it's going to be pretty out the other side or something like that.
But if you are not literate in understanding how these technologies work, how would you even know to ask the question?
Struggle with it every day, trying to figure out how to make readers want to read our stuff more.
Yeah, you probably will end up in the long run being a lot better off if you focus on the ones you care about the most, as opposed to the one where you think is the most revenue potential or whatever.
You said be weird, be unusual, be creative, because that's what's going to save you.
This part of the party.
In the end, we are gatekeepers to a better world. And that is worth fighting for.
Okay, so it's a lot of the team coming out of the conference, it's about meaning and impact. So it's kind of sort of phrasing to ask this question. So what does it mean to be a designer today? So whether you're interaction designers, you're visual designers, whatever it is. So we're going to, Genji case, let's kick off the opening presentation is about the 8 lessons that he learned while he was taking a break out of rock design. And one of them that I kind of picked from here is about longevity and first impact. So what he means by that is basically how relevant are we and how long are we going to stay relevant? And what sort of impact are we making to our design and how long those impacts are going to be? So thinking about, you know, the products that you're using now and how long has that been developed and how long is that actually going to last. The second quote that I like is from Jen as well, is the money you turn down is defined as much as what you take on. So it's about knowing what you stand for. So about being prudent of what you take on, about asking questions along the way and keeping an open mind and what impact of those answers. It's getting a bit philosophical here, bear with me. So Christian Sincerian is the chair of, I think it's the Interactive Design chair of the California is it College of the Arts or something like that. Anyway. So he talks about how designer is actually already made many progress, and then they now have a chair in the design the board meetings, like it's and their place for the design thinking, the processes that's been going on. So, but they still have questions about what are the values that you actually bring into the business. So he thinks that design needs to be able to come up with meaning. So he introduced the framework of working with starting being meaningful. So the presentation is about meaning first. So it's meaningful to asking about, you know, are we doing the right things? Then going to the, are we doing the things right? So he puts that into like a 2-budget quadrant, and what we wanted to get to is the state of delight. So I think, and he was saying that we spend a lot of time in a usable thing, so we care about everything's being usable, everything's being easy to use, but we rarely go across to the meaningful side, which is the delight side. He thinks that we can do that because he takes this analogy of the designers have 3 superpowers. Don't ask me where this analogy comes from. So orator means designers, you can channel the meaning, know how to do research, listen, observe, empathize with people. And then alchemy is about being a precursor to something bigger than we don't quite fully understand yet. So design is able to take some materials, combine them together, and make new things that weren't invented before. And the coyote is about having the wisdom of a coyote. Now, again, don't ask me why. It's about ability to question a problem. The future reminding us the thinking of the future. Tristan Harris from Google, together with Christian, in the same presentation, so we've got 2 presenters in the same presentation, which is good. He introduced this concept of a human design goal. So, and designing for time well spent. I guess tying back to being meaningful first, he sort of asked us to kind of reframe our design goal being meaningful. What is it that actually being meaningful to human condition? So he was sort of having this framework of asking what sort of activities that was matter to you, what sort of relationship that matters to you, and what is thinking style. So there's, I think this concept, I don't know if you heard this before, but there's a good video of him presenting this and with examples and stuff with all the better explanation. So I'll invite you to go and have a look at them and check them out. I'll put the link in the back of this presentation. So Gayatri Underwood's, again, getting a little bit philosophical here, in terms of, he said that technology should really get out of the way in terms of design. So as designer, we have a choice of what values we want to bring and also how we approach technology to the human condition. So you can see how the teams kind of carry across. Dina Ronson touched on behavior design. So I think we're quite familiar with behavior design and using neuroscience and behavioral sciences to do your design. But what he was, what she's highlighting here is, while everything was around us is designed to change our behavior, the question is what sort of behavior that we actually want to persuade people with. So she mentioned things like dark patterns. Have you heard of dark patterns before? So, you know, it's a very, I think it's a dilemma for designers to actually decide whether or not we're going to go on that path, especially when the business goals and the user goals not necessarily align. So I think it's still a big question. So one of the examples of behavioral design that I really like, actually, this is a picture I took outside the Verawaty Gardens where the conference is at. So it is a great example of how design actually, you know, influence behavior. So you can see on the left, on the black, it's called landfill. So instead of having just what we have in Sydney, you know, the red bins for everything else, and then the yellow bins is for recycle, it actually tells you where those rubbish are going to be end up. And I think San Francisco is very big at recycling and reusing and all that. So a lot of their products are actually compostable. So, and this is quite surprising to me actually, because in the conference we have lots of plastic cups for drinks and things, but they're actually compostable. So a waiter has to actually put right down on the plastic cup, like this is compostable, so put it on the compost bin. So yeah, so that's kind of behavior actually then very strongly influence how you approach things. This is another example I took, a photo that it's San Francisco Airport. It's a refill bottle, water refill. But what interests me on this is actually, if you can read the line that was under the have an empty bottle and so, you know, fill it for free with delicious water directly from California, something Sierra Nevada mountains. When I read that, it feels like I'm reading a water bottle campaign, like, you know, at the back of your label. You know, it's like this water coming from some beautiful mountains, right? So it's just a tap, water. You know, so again, so that's kind of this emphasis as well. And when I was there as well, do you remember those when you go to US, when you went to US Australia last time, you have those bags, those embarrass bags. That bag, I carry them everywhere in Sydney, but I never used them. And I happened to have it with me when I was in San Francisco, and guess what? I use them every day. You know why? Because it costs me 10 cents every time I need to get a bag, which is going to go across into the landfill. So, carry on. So the next one is conversation between Jim Brown and Alan Kochnoff. So they talk about the challenges that businesses have currently with design, or actually design challenges, and also design companies having their, you know, whether they're still relevant, you know, is agencies going to be, still exist in, you know, 5, 10 years time, that kind of thing. So this is what the quote that I like, so it's about being intentional what they do in the world. So, and you're also sort of talking about how do we stay relevant, and this is the 4 advice that he gave to designers. The next speaker is Aya Badia. Have anyone here know Little Bits? Have you heard of Little Bits?
Yep.
Yeah. So if you haven't checked this out, I think it's really interesting. And I kind of I didn't know about Little Bits until I saw this her presentation, and it's a bit like Lego for electronics. So her point was basically the problem we have currently, we're surrounded by technology, we're surrounded by electronics, but no one knows how it actually works. So if you see the snippets of her talking, you know, if you don't know how it works, how can you then ask the right questions, or how can you actually know that it's right for you? So little bits solve this by basically creating this sort of kind of this technology as a language. So make it accessible, make it so it's not about the technologies, but what you can make out of it. And she sort of put this, we should do the same for design. So make it accessible, make it inviting, make it so people can actually use something and share something in the community. So moving on to the more practical lessons. I chose this Katie Koch because I think it's quite relevant to, especially what I'm doing right now. I don't know, hopefully it will be relevant to you. So from startup to stable, so Katie Koch is from MX. So she shared her experience in building a UX or design team at MX when the company didn't even know how to put the design team in organizational structure. So I think this is very common in a big financial company that design was just, they don't know where to put us, unfortunately. So she shared the experiences and how she get it from the startup that, you know, this real design team now being recognized as part of the influence division of what MX did. So this is her tips on how to get there. So know the rules of the game. 8-month metrics means like if you need to work differently, you just do it. Adapt to change and learning to say no. And the one that I like the most actually is be smart about the business and work at that cadence. I think we sometimes forget that the business doesn't work the same way that we do. So Leah Bully from Forrester Research, she talks about how she did a survey, or she did a research on what makes a better or like a most impact UX team in organizations. So she did a research, a survey covering from large to small, different teams and stuff. So she wanted to know, what's making UX team effective or making the most impact, and what are the elements of that. So what she found is actually size and resources are not the precursor of being successful in the organization. And she also identified where companies go wrong in supporting UX. So she called this digital divide. So how many of you work in a company where the CX team and the UX team is a separate team? Yeah. So that's kind of the point she's making. There's a lot of organizations who still thinks UX is just belong to the digital world. That they set up, because of that, then they set up the UX team to work in that space only. So they prevent them to working across the whole experience. And then the second point, I think, is purely true, related to design and usability testing. So once, I think I'm sure you've probably heard this before, like, okay, we're done user testing, so we're done UX. Tick. So the barriers of preventing UX making greater impact is lack of understanding and partial implementation. So it's related to the one above. So this is important to acknowledge, because if businesses keep going down this way, then they can't get the value out of UX. If they can't get the value out of UX, then they will just see UX as like a fad, like another trend. They're going to quickly move to the next one. So this is what the picture I took for the presentation, about the status for the different UX in organizations. So you can probably sort of look at or assess yourself, where's your organization sitting. Some of them may be in progressing, some of them are already in modern, some of them, a few of them might be still outdated. So some of the advice that she just gave to the organization had to modernize UX, and some of them, if you see a lot of it, it's probably the stuff that you've been talking to them time and time again. You've got to do the research. Just do it, right? You keep saying that you're doing research, but you're not doing it. So, and this is what she said that we can do to help the business. So in terms of the research, for example, what are the tips to track your user exposure hours? So in one of the research, she found out that having scheduled 2 hours every 6 weeks to talk to your users is very doable. It doesn't have to have a week or 2 weeks. Fast-setting platform, research sandwich. And then facilitate work session, find your CX council, you've got CX and UX team in different teams. Try to work together. Go beyond to cover the end-to-end UX, so work in parallel so you know what's coming, what's next. And about the leadership, getting your strategy stories right and collect your 15 stories, success 15 stories. Next one is, this is actually my favorite presentation. If you want to watch the video, watch this guy. I think it's really good. So Mike Montiero basically said that, we've been buying into this myth of good design sells itself. It's absolutely bullshit, that's what he says. So you need to work like a scientist and present like a snake charmer. Selling is the core design skills. And he's continuing on about, 13 mistakes designer makes in presentation. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to just have a read and just pick the one that you've actually done already. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Which one's the ones that is the biggest mistake? Should we move on to the next one? I think giving the real estate tour.
Yes.
Who gave real estate tour in client presentation? Hands up. Yeah. Starting with an apology is an interesting one. I think it's just like, sometimes people, they come into the conversations, oh, I'm sorry, I only have 2 hours sleep last night, blah, blah, blah. Client doesn't care. Right? Yeah. This next one's getting defensive. I know I've done that. Talking about how hard you work. I spent 3 days doing this all night long. Reacting to questions as change requests, that's another one. So it's really, and the last one I really like, do you like it? So I'm going to move on to because I have another video to show which is, I think is worth seeing. So move on to the Interaction Awards. Before we do that, I'm just going to play this video. This video is from all the Interaction Awards jury or panels, and talking about what the state of interaction design is today.
Interaction design today, it's a lot more complex than it used to be. I think the challenge there is how does interaction design help to create change?
I think interaction design is becoming the third great field of design to emerge. We had graphic design and industrial design early in the 20th century, but I think the rise of interaction design in the latter part of the 20th century and now blossoming in the 21st century is a sign of a real transformation of our practices. It plays a fundamental role. We do talk about service design and variations with public sector design. There are other variations, but they're all about human interaction. How we are together, how we relate to each other, to our environment. interaction design is the way we conceptualize these relationships and bring it to concrete life for people.
The really interesting thing we're seeing is that as the field has established itself as a clear silo with the other design fields, it's actually starting to break out of the silo again.
I think it's growing as a field. Where I come from, it's very new. And for the research fraternity, which is where I come from again, it's almost threatening in some ways, because you have a lot of design students, people, graduates from design schools doing interaction design, and there's some feeling that it's encroaching on the research territory, because research is so integral, or so much part of what we do.
The role of interaction design today, its challenge is how does it do that while it's working with all of these other disciplines, in that interaction design becomes infused into lots of different kinds of ways of working, being one where interaction designers need to be able to jump fences, cross boundaries, work with different disciplines, and that may be one of their core capacities, in being able to bring things together.
I believe we'll see that interaction designers take a role much more inside the organization when new services and products are built, because it needs to be an integral part of everything.
I have seen the role of interaction design change a lot in the past 10 years in China, especially. I see it as starting from as an interaction designer, just focusing on the digital media, on the UI, changing to thinking about the product as a whole. What's the role of design playing in the product, and how it work with the team. I think is all very interesting.
From a business perspective, interaction design is still misunderstood in a lot of areas, because there is a beauty in interaction design, good quality interaction design, that can really be effective in making products really good. Interaction design is hard to evaluate.
I think the challenge is how we designers redefine our role within the company and in the process. A lot of times, especially for the Asian culture, we tend to be very collaborative and cooperative, and in order to redefine our role, it's like doing a revolution. How do we actually moving slowly towards that, and also keep the consensus and have the revolution goes peacefully? Is going to be a challenge.
I think there's a challenge that the depth and the expertise of the craft will need to develop highly, particularly with kind of the complexity of the Internet of Things and the systems that we need to design for. At the same time, the breadth of things that the designer needs to do to get good product services created will also be more complex. So how you balance understanding the breadth and being able to craft the depth will be a serious challenge.
The real challenge is corporate culture and business management. They're the ones who are facing a complete inversion of their world. And interaction designers, we're just doing our practice. And we're doing just fine. But what it means is that the challenge that we face is not one of how do we become better practitioners. The challenge that we face is how do we convince those people around us to let us practice.
So the last sort of few slides just showing you some of the best shows, projects. So I'll just probably not going to talk too much about this, and I'll leave you to have a look at the website. And we also have the Student Design Challenge. And Interaction15 is in Helsinki. Start savings. Awesome.